Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into an era that just fundamentally reshaped, well, everything we thought we knew, the Islamic Golden Age.
Right. And when you look at the science, the philosophy,
Yeah,
it's stunning stuff. Algebra, medicine, astronomy.
exactly. But behind all those breakthroughs, there's this foundational engine, right? Something more systematic.
That's it. That's what we're digging into, the translation movement.
Oh,
Our sources are pretty clear. This wasn't just, scholars randomly translating old texts. It was a huge, deliberate campaign.
launched by the early Abbasid Caliphate.
Precisely. A massive state-funded effort to find, translate, and really absorb the great works of antiquity into Arabic.
And the result wasn't just saving old knowledge, it basically kickstarted an academic revolution. Arabic becomes the language of science for centuries.
For half a millennium, yeah. It changed global history, no question.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where does an undertaking like that even begin? What's the spark?
Well, you've got to look at the politics first. The big shift is around 750 A.D.
When the Abbasids took over from the Umayyads.
Exactly. The Umayyads were in Damascus, very focused on, let's say, military expansion, conquest.
Okay.
But the Abbasids moved the capital east. They built Baghdad. And that wasn't just moving house.
It signaled a whole different approach.
Totally. A different governing philosophy. They inherited this massive, incredibly diverse empire, Persian traditions, Mesopotamian history, different languages.
Just holding it together militarily wouldn't cut it anymore.
Right. They seem to realize that cultural power, intellectual authority,
Hmm.
being seen as the center of wisdom, that was maybe a more stable way to unify things, to gain legitimacy.
That's interesting. Shifting from raw power to, well, brain power as a political strategy.
Kind of, yeah. But sponsoring this kind of thing, it needed serious cash, state-level funding.
And our sources stress this wasn't cheap. I mean, were people okay with spending fortunes on old scrolls when maybe roads needed building or armies needed paying?
It must have felt like a gamble, for sure. But the commitment, crucially, came right from the top.
The caliphs themselves.
Yes. Caliph Harun al-Rashid, and especially his son, al-Mamun, they saw knowledge as a strategic asset.
Essential for running a complex empire.
Absolutely. For them, getting a better translation of Ptolemy's astronomy wasn't some academic luxury. It was as vital as, say, building a new fortress. It helped with navigation, administration, prestige.
Okay, so the political will is there. The funding starts to flow. What were they actually looking for? It wasn't just any old text, was it?
No, definitely not. There was a clear focus. While philosophy mattered, the real priority seems to have been practical, usable knowledge.
Like science and medicine.
Exactly. The huge Greek inheritance in medicine, mathematics, engineering, astronomy. They saw works by people like Galen, Euclid, Ptolemy. These weren't just books. They were seen as treasures, blueprints for progress.
Plato and Aristotle too, of course, but the applied science was maybe the driving force initially.
It seems that way. Things that could demonstrably advance their civilization.
And the way they went about getting these texts is just amazing. They didn't just wait for things to show up.
No, not at all. The sources talk about systematic missions, sending people out specifically to find manuscripts.
Emissaries sent to the Byzantine Empire, other places, basically treasure hunters for knowledge.
Pretty much. And they created this whole economic engine to make it happen, to get the best translators, people who knew Greek, Syriac, Persian.
They paid them incredibly well. This is where the famous story comes in, right?
The weight in gold story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our sources mention it often translators paid the weight of their translated work in gold.
Wow. Okay, I have to ask, was that literally gold bars? Or is it maybe a bit of, hyperbole to show how much they valued it?
It's debated, but it seems it was often quite literal, maybe in coins or bullion calculated by weight. But even if sometimes exaggerated, the core point is undeniable.
That intellectual work was being rewarded on par with, say, military success.
Exactly. It turned translating from this obscure skill into a really prestigious, well-paid profession. It drew scholars from everywhere.
That kind of investment, that scale, it needs organization, a central place.
And that's the House of Wisdom, the Bayt al-Hikmah.
Set up by Caliph al-Mamun in Baghdad.
Yes. And this was the absolute nerve center. It wasn't just a library holding scrolls. Think of it more like a modern research institute combined with a university and a translation agency.
All under one roof.
Pretty much. It handled the whole process. Getting the texts, cataloging them, the translation work itself, research based on the texts, copying them, the whole pipeline.
How did they manage quality? With so many texts, so many translators.
They had systems, oversight committees, probably peer review of a sort, and the standardized, high-payment, incentivized, careful, accurate work. You didn't want to rush and get it wrong.
And what's really striking is who was doing this work. It wasn't just Muslims.
Not at all. That's a key detail the sources emphasize. You had Christian scholars, Jewish scholars, working right alongside Muslim scholars.
Translating texts from Greek, Syriac, Persian, even Indian sources?
Yeah, regardless of their faith or background, it was about expertise. Who could do the job best?
That level of collaboration sounds almost utopian. Were there disagreements, tensions? I mean, interpreting Aristotle isn't always straightforward.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There were intense debates. Intellectual rivalries were common, often about accuracy, about the best way to translate.
How so?
Well, you had the camp that favored very literal, word-for-word translation, and another that argued for capturing the meaning, the idiom, even if it wasn't word for word.
Ah, the classic translation debate.
Right. And the early literal ones sometimes made things confusing or introduced errors. So these debates actually forced scholars to get better, to refine the Arabic language itself for scientific thought.
Which brings us to just how hard this translation work actually was. It wasn't just swapping words.
No way. It was an incredible act of linguistic creation.
Because the concepts didn't always exist in Arabic yet.
Exactly. Think about translating complex Greek philosophy. Terms like Aristotle's hyle prime matter or Uzi's substance, essence. What's the Arabic word for that if no one's discussed it in Arabic before?
They had to invent the vocabulary.
Pretty much. They had to build a precise, technical, scientific Arabic. Taking existing roots, maybe, but giving them specific new meanings. They were literally crafting the tools to think these thoughts in a new language.
That demands real skill, real leadership. Is there anyone who stands out as setting the standard?
Definitely. The name that always comes up is Hunayn ibn Ishaq.
The sheik of the translators.
That's him. A Christian Arab scholar, phenomenal linguist, fluent in Greek, Syriac, Arabic. His work, especially on Galen's medical texts, was just monumental.
What made his work so special?
His rigor. He wasn't just translating one manuscript. He'd often track down multiple Greek versions, compare them, try to establish the most accurate original text before translating.
Wow, so like critical text editing and translation.
Exactly. He set an incredibly high bar for accuracy and clarity. His methods really became the gold standard.
Okay, so Hunayn and others produced these amazing accurate translations. The texts are usable. And this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because the goal was never just to have the books.
That's the crucial point. This wasn't about passive preservation. It was step one. Once Arab and Muslim scholars mastered these texts after all that hard work of translating and standardizing,
They started questioning them.
immediately they began to analyze them critically, to test them, to find errors, to correct the great ancients.
Wait, correcting someone like Galen or Ptolemy? That sounds bold. Weren't these figures almost untouchable?
For centuries, in many places, yes. Their works were treated almost like sacred texts. But the Islamic scholars, perhaps driven by their own emphasis on, observation and empirical evidence.
They weren't afraid to say, hang on, Aristotle might have missed something here.
Precisely. They engaged actively with the material. They performed their own experiments, made their own observations. This willingness to challenge, to refine, to build upon the Greek heritage, that's really the spark of the Golden Age's innovation.
And you see real results, right? Across different fields.
Absolutely. Take medicine. You have figures like Al-Razi or Ibn Sina, known as Avicenna in the West. They deeply understood Hippocrates and Galen.
But they didn't stop there.
No. They added massive amounts of their own clinical observations, their own discoveries. They essentially developed things like, the foundations of modern hospital practice, clinical trials.
Incredible. And mathematics.
Maybe the most dramatic example, Al-Khwarizmi. He studied Indian math, Persian math, Greek math, synthesized it all.
And then invented something new.
Entirely new fields. His book, Kitab al-Jab wa al-Muqabala. The al-Jab part gives us our word algebra. He wasn't just refining geometry. He developed systematic ways to solve equations, to deal with unknown quantities. It fundamentally changed how people could approach problem solving. A whole new mathematical language.
So we've got the treasure hunt, the intense translation work, the invention of scientific language, and then this leap into critique and innovation. So what does this all mean, like the bigger picture?
Well, the impact is just immense. Think about accessibility, translating all this into Arabic.
Which was becoming the common language across this vast empire.
Right, from Spain to Central Asia. Suddenly, this knowledge wasn't locked away in Greek, accessible only to a few elites in certain regions. It was available to scholars, thinkers, doctors, engineers across this enormous, diverse area.
Democratization of knowledge, almost?
In a way, yes. And this allowed for this incredible synthesis. You get Greek rationalism blending with Islamic intellectual traditions, with Persian insights, Indian mathematics. It creates something new and powerful.
And connecting this to, say, European history, we often hear about the Renaissance picking up directly from ancient Greece and Rome, but there's a huge gap there.
And the translation movement fills that gap. Crucially, the knowledge that eventually fueled the European Renaissance didn't just reappear out of nowhere.
It came via Arabic.
Overwhelmingly, yes. The improved, corrected, expanded versions of Greek science and philosophy, plus all the original contributions made in Arabic. That's what was later translated from Arabic into Latin in places like Spain and Sicily.
So the libraries in places like Toledo or Cordoba, filled with these Arabic texts, they were the bridge.
They were the essential bridge. It wasn't just a transfer of old Greek books. It was the transfer of a much richer, refined, and expanded body of knowledge that had been actively developed for centuries.
So the translation movement wasn't just about the Islamic world. It was, in the long run, a catalyst for global intellectual development.
Absolutely. It's this amazing story of, well, state-sponsored intellectual curiosity. The sheer cost, the effort, the linguistic challenges, the collaboration, all driven by this idea that knowledge is a universal heritage.
A heritage worth investing in massively.
Whatever the cost, it seemed.
That core belief knowledge as a universal good feels very powerful.
It really is. And, it leaves you with a thought, doesn't it?
Oh.
Well, the Abbasids, at least symbolically, measured the value of knowledge transfer by a translator's weight in gold. Currency, literal wealth, was used to acquire and elevate human understanding. So it makes you wonder, if that was the currency then for the most valuable information, what currency, what system of value do we use today? In our world, flooded with information, how do we acquire, validate, and share what's truly valuable?
What's our gold standard for knowledge now?
Exactly. Something to maybe mull over after this deep dive.